Hello everyone, and welcome to our video about language death, where we will share with you a little knowledge about the topic and some reflection about it, hoping that you can finish this video with a little more understanding on the subject and an opinion of your own. So, without further explanation, let's start with the presentation. What would it be of us humans if we didn't have the amazing ability to communicate in such a proficient manner? It is true that a lot of animals are able to communicate, but only humans are capable of doing so with that amount of certainty and specificness, making language not only our method of communication, but our only method to trespass, create, and save knowledge of different cultures around the world. In this line, many different languages are part of many different cultures, and because of this, each language has something special and different to give to the world. Through the natural course of humanity, millions of languages have arisen and fallen, and most of them we never got to even meet, long gone before there was any form of keeping them away from forgetfulness. And in this line is when we talk about language death, a phenomenon that started to occur thousands of years ago and will probably keep happening in the years to come. It is something of great debate among linguists and other experts, a controversial topic to say the least, but language death is, without doubt, a very important topic we should take into account. With that little introduction, I think it's the perfect moment to present you all with the concept we are going to discuss in the next few minutes. So what is language death? That is probably the first question we have to answer to understand what comes next. And it isn't far of what you're probably thinking about the concept. In simple words, a language is considered dead when there aren't any native speakers alive, losing then the possibility of continuity. Language death is a process in which the level of a speech community's linguistic competence in their language variety decreases, eventually resulting in no native or fluent speakers of the variety. Language death can affect any language form, including dialects. When we talk about language death, it is necessary to understand that this is not a process that happens the same every time, but it varies in 4 different identified variants. The first one is called sudden language death, and it is called like this because, as the name states, it happens suddenly. It can occur when speakers unexpectedly die or are killed. The second one is called radical language death, and it's similar to the first one. The difference between them is that radical language death is characterized for the shift to another language, and it usually happens because of social and political repression. The third one is called gradual language loss or death, and it's the most common form of language death. A language shifts to the dominant one and it starts to get lost as the years pass by, losing itself generation by generation. And the last form of language death is bottom to top language death, where a language is only retained by a selected group of people, and for few formal contexts of religions, rituals, etc. Language death is more common than what we could have possibly imagined. It is even more unbelievable when we learn that around 90% of those spoken languages today will have disappeared by the end of the century, and that currently around 922 languages are classified as dying because the last remaining speakers are not able to pass it on to children. With these statistics, it is possible to quantify how often language death happens, but this does not demonstrate the amount of information that is lost alongside it. When a language dies, a whole culture dies with it, leaving behind immeasurably more than just unintelligible words. Nevertheless, language death is still something that does not strike everyone in the same way. With some experts on one side and others on the other, some people do not believe that it is a matter of discussion. But with all the implications that language death has, it is almost impossible to assess it without further observation. Language is a vital part of us, the backbone of societies, the cornerstone of our labor as EFL teachers, which makes the preservation of languages around the world something imperative.
Now, language death is not the only change the nature of a language can have. Language shift and language loss are also terms we have already mentioned and are needed in order to achieve a more complete knowledge of the subject. Language shift refers to the acquisition of a dominant language due to political reasons, like the power the other language speakers have over the others, or the need to portray a successful assimilation to the dominant language's culture. Language loss happens when vocabulary, dominance, and understanding on how to use a language are getting lost because of the shift or death of its speakers. Finally, we have language death, where there are no steps left to revive that language, as every person who spoke it is forever unavailable to use it and teach anyone how to do so. But what are the consequences of language death? There are cultural, agricultural, and academic repercussions of this event. We can see how cultural mindsets of societies are directly related to the languages they are being expressed through. Hence, we can see how songs, tales, sayings, and phrases can lose their unique meaning by being translated, and are a giant loss to the diversity humans offer to the human race. Agricultural knowledge is also a victim of this event, as practices known only by some societies and their native speakers are frequently lost with the language. Thus, certain uses of herbal medicines, for example, are unavailable to the world once again, and so are certain traditional ways to secure plantations through generations. Now, let us not forget how also the academic heritage is affected as linguists lose the opportunity for bigger proficiency. When the study field is reduced, many will never get to expand their knowledge of certain uses languages can achieve in the hands of its speakers. To be linguists have different takes on language death that have we have to take into consideration in order to take a stand on the topic, as we should as students of the subject. Peter Ledfocht's ideas contain the certainty that linguists should not be involved in certain changes languages go through, but that they should only observe and study the reality that language is in, and that the loss of a language is as natural as species loss, and so no political factors have any relation to it. Nancy Dorian, on the other hand, stands by the idea linguists should absolutely be an active part on the changes languages go through, as it is a political matter that they are only effects of policies and practices made by human beings. Thus, we have the obligation to participate in the process. We strongly stand by the protection of languages around the world. We advocate for the preservation and appreciation of the languages. And being English the ultimate dominant language in the world at the moment, we should also participate as students of a language on the protection of others that do not have the same luck. Mapudungun is a strong example of a language we could help and encourage its protection by passing on to our students the concerns due to the importance of the subject, or at least to explain the losses that come with the death of a language for the worldwide cultural heritage they are also part of. Also, As active members of our educational environments, we must work for a curriculum that includes these concerns and acts appropriately towards achieving changes. And now, after all this information and statements, we can conclude how beneficial for the cultural heritage of the world is to be active in the protection of languages, as language death is mostly a consequence of the human actions that have took place in several parts of the world and is still happening at this very moment, and very rapidly, as we have learned. Thus, language should not be taken as just words that are going to be naturally lost, because when we lose a language, we lose everything provided through the years of human history inside that culture, and we, as English teachers, are completely conscious of the importance of what languages carries in terms of culture, because we do not only teach English, we also transmit the culture of the Anglo-Saxon world. So the value of the things lost is most of the times unmeasurable for humanity. Because of this, it is important for humankind, for linguists, for experts, for EFL teachers like us, to preserve languages as much as possible, to maintain precious and irreplicable knowledge as the sacred possession it should be for humanity, because we understand that every language, just as English is for us, is treasure for humanity. And in the same line, all governments around the world should invest time and resources in order to preserve languages that are starting to show signs of decadency in their territories before it is too late. This is the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening until the end. We hope you enjoyed it. And next, we will leave the references so you can learn a bit more about the subject if you like.